Welcome to the She Build Show. I'm your host, Stefanie Olson, a licensed general contractor who builds new construction, renovates, and designs your vision. Today, more than ever, we need raw, authentic women who are willing to rise above society's norms, break those glass ceilings, and encourage each other to boldly build the life we were meant to live. So, honey, what are you building? Welcome to the She Build Show. We have an incredible guest today. Her name is Andrea Martin. She actually lives in Canada. I don't know what part yet because you're going to have to tell me that. And I'm so excited to hear about what you do because you're everything safety. And we have never had a guest like this on. So I'm excited to hear about that and welcome to the show.
Thank you so much. I'm excited.
Yes. So every time a guest comes on, I spend like quite a bit of time, like just getting to know them, stalking them. It's another way to put that. And I'm interested to know first, like just in a brief description, describe what you do. And then I want to get into how you got there.
Yeah. So pretty cool job. So I'm a fall protection specialist. So I handle a certain region within Southwestern Ontario. So my job essentially involves me going out, educating anybody who works at heights, doing site assessments at, pretty much anywhere where people say, like, what do we need to do? How do we do it safely? We know that gravity is a constant thing. So when we're working at heights, it's just I guess the biggest thing is I get to have the coolest job in the entire world because I get to see everything. I can go into food plants. I can go into a petrochem site. I can go into a mine. I can go into heavy metal manufacturing. Every day is different. So there's no monotony to what I do. And education for me is crucial when it comes to working at heights. So that's one of my other favorite things that I get to do in my day-to-day activities.
That's so cool. It's so funny that you're like the best job in the whole world. And you're like, I'm a specialist, which sounds like you have no idea. Like, at least most people have no idea that that's a thing.
Yeah.
That there are actually people that can specialize in this. And the fact that you love it is so cool. And that you're probably one of the few women that do it is also amazing. So how long have you been in this role?
So with 3M, I've been here for almost 8 years, but I've been doing fall protection now for, I'd say about 15, 18 years, give or take, like really focused on fall protection for that amount of time.
Wow, that's incredible. Okay, so now let's back up before that, like 15 to 18 years, and tell me, maybe just a little bit of history of like how you got into it and why, it was interesting. Like I'm always like wanting to know why people's personalities fit with a job that they love, because a lot of times people don't know themselves well enough to be like, oh, I'm really detail oriented, or I'm really not organized and I need a creative job, or I'm so crazy anal and my skills of keeping color coded closets translates to fall protection, like I don't know.
Absolutely. And what the funny part was, ever since I was like 12 years old, I wanted to be a marine biologist. So I'm so far away from what my dream job as a kid was to where I am now. And so before I got into the safety world, I have been working in the restaurant business since I was 15 years old. So whether it was being a hostess, graduating up to being a waitress, being a bartender, and then being a manager. And I love that. Like, it's fun. We had DJs and, you're serving drinks, pulling cocktail kind of situations, flipping cans and bottles. And I loved it. And then I got pregnant when I was 21. So, and then I had my kid when I was 22 years old, and just realizing a few years into my kid being like, probably, I think my kid was 2. And I just kind of turned around and he said, like, this is not stable. If I want to make good money, I have to work at night to make good tips. During the day, I was barely making enough money to cover daycare. And I'm like, I can't do this. So I applied at a local glove manufacturing company, and a month later I got an interview. I came in, and next thing you know, I had the job. And so gloves to fall protection is a big gap in between there too. So hand safety versus, working at heights. But it was the starting point into where I went and how I got to where I am today.
Okay. So when you did glove, so you did like hand protection, obviously there was a glove manufacturer, but then when was like what was the turning point or the class or the education piece that brought you into the fall protection?
Yeah, so one of my customers, so one of my distributors he'd always called me up all the time. I was always helping him out. And he threw something at me at a trade show and offered me a job to come work over there. And when they threw out the dollar figure, it was double what I was making. And then now at this point, I'm a single mom. So I'm still in glove manufacturing, but now I'm a single mom. And they threw out this that, here you go, here's your annual salary, plus then there's bonuses and all these other cool things. And I was like, hold on a second here. Somebody actually wants to pay me this? Like, am I not getting paid enough on the back end? So I jumped on that opportunity. And then through there, starting in as their safety specialist within the company, all I knew was gloves. So they started off bringing in different manufacturers. So, we had respiratory manufacturers, we had defibrillator manufacturers, SCBAs, and then they sent me for fall protection training. And I was like, whoa, what is this? This is kind of cool. Because for fall protection, there's a lot of rules that go along with it, but it's like a puzzle piece, and all those pieces have to fit well. Like you're only as strong as your weakest link within the world of fall protection. So all these puzzle pieces and okay, A can go with B, but can't go with C. How do we put this together? So I really kind of took the fall protection world and the gear and everything I'd learned and started kind of implementing it into customer sites. As a female, in the sales side of things, I was a lone wolf. So you're walking in and you're trying to take business and work with people who have relationships with men that span back 10, 15, 20 years. So you can't just walk in and be like, hey, how about those, Blue Jays? And so it's not the same, right? They don't look at you, what can you bring? So gloves, glasses, earplugs, those are kind of a commodity product. So fall protection was that solution based. And that's kind of where I built the trust of working with these end users. And then from there, it was like, okay, now I can get a little bit more business. And then I was building those relationships, and it kind of became a domino effect after that. So it really took that fall protection as my starting point to have the conversations within the end user level at any account I ever went into, because it's the thing that I guess people will say it's the thing that keeps them awake at night. There's so many different things with fall protection that are they up to speed, or do they meet the regulations for the province, or is it CSA approved, etc. So it was one of those where I had that knowledge and I could bring it forward and build those relationships. And those relationships that I built 15 years ago, I have those relationships now, so that when my competition and male counterpart, like my male competition, walk in, they're trying to build those relationships that I've taken and I've held on tight for all these years,
right?
Because that trust and that the knowledge, I guess, that goes behind it.
Absolutely. So tell me, just for the audience, so like describe what 3M does, because you're just I'm guessing, gathering, because I don't know, that you're like a piece of a piece of the bigger picture. So what does 3M provide as like an overall service?
Yeah, so 3M is built out of many entities within this world. So starting with what I'm part of, what we call the personal safety division. So 3M with respiratory, right? And 95 masks, eyewear, hearing protection. Part of the acquisition with the fall protection was the capital safety DBI line, which is kind of where I came in.
Are you guys producing and distributing these products? Like, so you have a manufacturer of these products and then you're on the sales end of that fall protection. Is that correct?
So we are the manufacturer. So 3M is the main manufacturer, and then we will sell to distributors who then sell it to their end users.
Right.
Yeah.
So are you having the conversations with the distributors, or are you going and selling directly to like a large contractor who's building, I'm guessing like a high rise or some sort of, higher building that would.
Yeah, so, pardon me. So we don't sell direct to the actual end user, but that's where the end users call us in for our expertise on the fall protection world or any other personal safety related matters. And then they would just get a quotation from their distributor. So I work very closely with my distributors too. We educate them a lot so that when they are going out in the field, they're educated enough to ensure that the right product is getting out there too at the same time. So it's there's kind of that the middleman is there on the selling side. So we sell, of course. I'm a seller, but my first thing is I'm a specialist within my field.
Right.
Yeah.
So can you give me like an example of what type of product, give me something not too complicated, but like if somebody was building like a larger type, higher building, what type of product would be the thing that they would need that you guys are providing, just so we can I kind of want to picture because I'm picturing harnesses and I'm like, am I even right on that? Or are we talking about scaffoldings or what kind of stuff?
Yeah, absolutely. So we talk about fall protection as the ABC. So the anchorage, the body support, and the connecting links. So definitely if somebody's building a commercial high rise, we got hollow core precast slab that's coming in. They would have full body harnesses. They would have self-retracting lifelines, leading edge self-retracting lifelines.
What is that? Stop me. What is that?
Yeah, so self-retracting lifeline, that can be small personal units that you would wear on your back, or much larger, 20, 30, 60 feet of cable that would be anchored somewhere, maybe on a column or an anchor point. And then allow the worker to move back and forth. So they'll move in and out like a seatbelt. Mm-hmm. And allow you so there's no slack in the system. There's a large drum on there. So as you're moving in and out, but if you were to slip and fall, that lifeline will lock up on you, right? Protecting you. And then leading edge product will actually protect that sharp edge that you would go over in like a core slab. So concrete and structural steel are very sharp edges. Right. That can cause regular cable and regular web to have a failure. So just because you have a harness on and just because you have a self-retracting lifeline or a lanyard on doesn't necessarily mean that in the event of a fall, it's going to hold up, because depending on what you're coming in contact with.
Huh. Interesting.
Yeah. And then rescue, right? That's the component that everybody forgets about. So having rescue plans and coming in and implementing rescue products for those applications, because you can't hang in that harness. We want you down, and we want you, either onto the next deck or down to the ground within 10, 15 minutes. It's got to happen very quickly.
Right. Do you have any stories of things like that where clients have, because all of this is kind of like insurance, right? Like you're like making sure everybody's safe. You want all your products to work well, but have you had stories of it happening where people have fallen and there's been rescues and you have your equipment? I don't know. I'm just wondering if there's personal ties to it.
Yeah. So for us, we have within our company, have had workers that have fallen. Their gears worked exactly the way it's supposed to work. It did everything that they needed it to do. It saved their lives, right? Fall protection isn't there to make your job easier. We know that, yes. But it's to protect you and save your life at the end of the day. It's unfortunate that a lot of the falls and a lot of the fall fatalities that come around, or injuries, are usually associated because people aren't wearing their fall protection. Gravity's there all the time, but we hope they're not falling every day, but our numbers are going up. And a lot of it, sometimes we look at it as complacency. Why aren't you wearing a harness? Oh, it's not comfortable. Okay. Let's get you into something that's comfortable so you wear this. And really trying to educate folks as to, it's about you. If you don't wear your harness properly and you fall, something can happen to you, like an injury or a fatality. And you have a family that care about you on the back end. So bringing in an emotional connection on that side. It's not like, here's a respirator, and if you don't shave you're not going to feel the effects today, but it may be 10, 15, 20 years down the road, you're going to feel those effects from working in whatever environment it was that you're working in. Unfortunately, fall protection, like it's instantaneous. The second you slip off of the side of a deck or, you know, off a roof, it's instantaneous.
Yeah.
And
I'm
so,
sure that like there's a part of your work or a part, like an element of it, that you get clients as a result of something bad happening.
yeah, absolutely. And, you know, things will pop up in our local, I guess, Ontario or Canadian, safety magazines, and you'll hear about a fall fatality and you're like, hey, that's a customer of mine. Like, or we know that customer. So we're fairly interconnected that way, when there is an injury or a fatality. And I've talked to many customers after an injury or fatality has occurred where now, okay, we need to get you out on the site. We need help to build our program kind of from scratch, come in and tell us what we need to do right.
Yeah.
And you know, there is proactive, and then unfortunately there's that reactive component to it too.
Which is not fun.
Oh.
Are you guys, do you only service Canada? Like, is that your distribution is in Canada only?
For 3M, no, we're a global company. So yeah, we have fall specialists in the US and all over the world.
And how big of an area like do you cover?
For me, if you take the province of Ontario, it's a pretty good chunk. I would say it's probably a third of the province. It's a big province. There's 3 of us in Ontario. So one of my coworkers does the northern part. I do the southwestern part, and then I have another counterpart who does like what we call the GTA, the Greater Toronto area, and a little bit towards like the Ottawa area, heading towards Quebec. So there's 3 of us interconnected in one province, and then there's 8 of us across the entire entire country.
Okay, wow. I'm curious as to know, like, that question that I kind of asked at the beginning, like, what about your personality fits well with this type of job? Because I'm always trying to think about, like, you know, the young lady out there that doesn't know what she wants to do. And sometimes, you know, like the purpose of this is to share about people like you who nobody has ever heard of this job and let people know that, like, if this type of personality or these types of things describe you, like, this is something that you could be really, really good at in the realm of construction.
Yeah, and I think one is I've always been a customer-centric person, you know, coming from the bartending world. And if you're not really good at customer service, you're not going to make money, right? It's very simple. And yes, there's a selling component to what I do, but for me, it's going out to the customers. I think my personality is just about helping people. Like before I became a mom, and after I graduated high school, I lived in Thailand for 5 months, and I taught human rights to Burmese refugees. And I did a lot of these other things, and I've done Habitat for Humanity build. So I think it's that helping side of things. And I'm a very technical person. So taking fall protection and taking the technical aspects of it, you don't need to know it all because it's in user manuals. If you know, sometimes you forget things, but the helping hand side of things, the education, I think it's that feeling like when you've left and somebody comes up to you and says, I had no idea about this. I've been doing this for 20 years and nobody's ever explained this to you, like to me. Now I know. And you're like, okay, you helped somebody. Like
right,
there's
that
a
like education piece that or teaching somebody how to correctly use this or put it on or how it helps you and why, rather than, I'm always all about that in my like just this morning I had a job and I was talking to the guy that was going to fix the Section 1 pest stuff, and I'm like, do you know why we need to do this? You know, like, do you understand how your job right now correlates to the end user? And he's like, no. I mean, maybe I didn't sound so sophisticated when I said that, but you know, like a Section 1 pest is, in our world, what that means is there's dry rot on your house. And this particular project that we're doing is a flip. And we need all of the section 1 done and the section 1 clearance. So that means that there's no dry rot. And what that in our world translates to is when a buyer comes to purchase that house, a lender that's going to give them a loan on that house is not going to lend on a property that has section 1 items. And so I go, it's going to cost me $200 for an inspector to come out when you're done to ensure that there's clearance on this house and there's no dry rot. And so that's why, like, because I had like a map of all the things and the description of like what needs to be done. And I'm like, I need you to grasp the concept of it, that an inspector is going to come out here and inspect us, provide clearance, and we're going to give that to the lender so that we make the buyer's job easier and the lender's job easier. Like, your job affects all these other things. And so I'm just always like trying to come from it rather than like, get this done. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So I think that like correlates to what you're saying, in that there's an education piece to it. And when people understand when and how and why and what it affects, like, they grab onto it and then they own it.
Yeah, absolutely. And, and being a female, sometimes, you're walking onto a construction site and it's very daunting. Like when I first started, it was scary, and still I go to speak to 200 guys. You're always going to have the one guy, and I'm like, whatever. I'm in my 40s. I've gotten to the point where it's listen, if you don't want to pay attention, walk away, because the rest of these guys, 199 guys that are here, they want to hear about how they can properly protect themselves and keep themselves safe and get home. The same way they walked in is the same way they're going to walk out, not by an ambulance, not by a body bag. So you can walk away, and then people all look at them. It's like, yeah, buddy, shut up. Like, she's talking. So, and I've been on sites where I've been pulled aside afterwards, and I've had these conversations. And one guy said to me, "You ever worked in construction before?" And the guy I was with that day, he kind of held onto my belt at the back end, because I thought I was going to cold clock this guy the way he was asking me. And I said, no, I've never physically worked in construction, but 70%, 75% of what I do is on construction sites. So he goes, well, listen. And I'm going, oh, great. Here comes the mansplaining. He's going to explain how I've done something wrong. And he goes, when you educated my guys, you educated them based on how the product works in conjunction to what they're doing. He's like, how do you know so much about 25M rebar and hollow core and precast? And I said, because when I come out onto sites, I ask people to explain their process to me, and we can talk through this, so I better understand how the gear that I'm going to implement will work with what they're doing.
Right.
He goes, well, your competition, they come out here, they get all technical about the guts and the components. And he goes, my guys are so lost, but now my guys understand their limitations within the gear because you've spoken to what they're physically doing.
Right.
So it's a nice feeling, right? I honestly didn't expect that conversation to go the way that it went, because I thought it was going to be a mansplaining situation. But it was a good feeling. Like, you leave and I'm like,
Yeah.
oh, okay.
Right. And just, so a lot of people don't have that gift. A lot of people don't know how to take something extremely technical and break it down into a way that, people can understand. And I think that is like, I went to school to be a teacher, and that getting to take information and translate it into a way that other people can learn it, own it, apply it, is like, lights up my world, because then you've just empowered somebody to be able to own that, do it themselves, and possibly teach someone else. Now that they know what it does, how it works, and what it means. And so I think that, kind of circling back to like what type of personality really fits this job and this type of work is, somebody that can do that. And I mean, I think the people aspect of it is really cool too. A lot of people think, oh, I work in a restaurant, like I have all of those skills. I could totally go do this, It's cool.
And it's fun. And I don't want to ever say it's dumbing it down, because it's not. There's so many moving components to fall protection. It's just for them to understand the limitations. You can't do this because it's not because I said so. That only works on my husband. It's because engineers, because standards, because the manufacturer, these people are saying this because you can't do this. It's not allowed. And there's rules, and we have to understand and respect those rules, because going beyond those rules could lead to an injury, could lead to failure of the gear. And so when they kind of understand that, oh, that's why they don't want me to do this, because it could fail. Yeah. Now I got it. Now it kind of all clicks in, and
right. And like, then when some guy's doing that, they're like, hey, don't do that.
Yeah, exactly. And so that's the cool component of it. Like I'm not an actual trades person per se, but I get to work with them all, which is the neatest thing in the entire world.
Yeah, you get to learn all kinds of things about the industry and the process. And
absolutely.
Which is so
and
fun.
That's, I love it, because I'll work with trades guys in a petrochem refinery, and then I'll work with trades guys in a food plant, big chocolate plant, or in a distillery, and then work with trades guys on a construction site, whether it's residential or commercial. So it's fun. It's such a great job to be able to go out. And I think having that personality, be like, hey guys, what's going on? Kind of walk on through, right? I pull in, they're like, oh, it's a chick. Like, who's this girl? Sort of situation. Like, what are you gonna teach us? And it's nice when you turn around, one guy's like, hey, 12 years ago, I worked at this job, and you came on our site too, and you taught us this. And so to start off, it's scary, but those years go by so fast before you know it. It's like, hey, I remember you. And then it's that building of respect, and respect goes both ways. It's earned both ways on that side of things. And folks know that I don't lie to them. I'm a straight shooter. You can't do this because of this. Simple as that.
Right.
I'm not gonna try and sell you something that you shouldn't be using, and I'm not gonna try and sell you something that's more expensive when you can go with something that's equally as good. Right. It's just, but when I tell you you can't do this, you better not do it.
You better listen.
You better listen. Absolutely. Right. Yeah.
Okay. So one last question. Tell me, how this job and what it's done maybe for your, the more personal side of your life. I don't know how many kids you have and how long you've been married, or your personal life, but is there a good work-life balance for you? Is it like symbiotic? Do you is your stress level okay? How are you? How's personal? And because we do talk about work and being in construction, but there's also the part of life that we can't ignore. And I think a lot of times it's can be expected that we ignore the fact that we're mothers and wives, and we keep it so private and separate because we kind of do have to work harder and show up and make sure, and I'm complete opposite. I'm like, I gotta go pick up my kids and I got this to do, or my kid's coming on site with me. I want there to be an intermingling of my personal and work life, one, so that my kids can know what I do, see what I do, be inspired by what I do, know that they can do whatever they want in life, that you can be a mom and work and try to, do all of the things and be good at it. And I just am curious, how that is for you.
Yeah. And my kid now is 21. So but Ash has been there through pretty much, when you think about it, in the last 18, 20 years, their entire life is kind of involved around safety. So we would start off with hey mom, look at those gloves that they're wearing, and look, that guy's on a roof. And so pointing things out and understanding, because safety is something we all deal with every single day. You tell kids not to touch a hot stove because they're going to burn themselves, right? You're not handing them big butcher knives and they're cutting off their fingers. And we put on a seatbelt. So and wearing helmets, when you're riding a bike, there's reasons. And that's kind of what I love about safety, is that what I instilled in my kid at a young age rolls over into their day-to-day lives, regardless if they go and work in a grocery store, or go and when they're in a job, they have to understand that there's health and safety that has to be taken. And if they're not too sure and they're unsure about that, and your gut tells you something's not right, back away. Don't put yourself in jeopardy. So my kid's been involved with it. Work-life balance it's kind of always been a big thing. Over the course of the years, of course, pay parity and changing and understanding pay parity and gender biases and all these things that I went through and starting to fight for, hold on, I'm worth this. This is where we go, led to the ability to go on a trip. And, you know, simple things that some people might take for granted on, you know, going on an annual trip, what was not even a question for me. I couldn't even do that without saving for like 3 years as a single mom. Like to take my kid to Disney World was like a major feat. And it's like, how am I going to budget this? But I want to do something. So finding that work-life balance as I've built myself up and I've fought for pay parity and I've done a lot of other things in this and where I'm sitting today. I'm a big pusher of work-life balance. I have a trailer that I go to on the weekends. As soon as I put that pass card like on the gate key and the gate opens up, whoa, goodbye Monday to Friday, hello weekend sort of thing. And I have a good group of friends too, like my good small tribe that I have where I can vent if I need to, get it off my chest. Because I think it's very important that we have those kind of people. All right, done. Let's go have a drink. You know, finding that work-life balance. Absolutely. Like I look at it and go, if I got hit by a bus tomorrow, I'm sure that in a month from now, somebody's going to have to cover my territory. So 3M's going to have to hire somebody. You know, it can happen to all of us. So taking that and really ensuring that you're putting yourself first. You always have to put yourself first. So that whether it's changing jobs to put yourself first or saying, you know what, no, I've put in 60 hours this week. I'm not putting any more. I'm not working the weekend. The weekends are mine. You have to do that because you'll stress yourself out. You're going to kill yourself.
Yeah.
You'll burn yourself. And women tend to burn themselves out a lot faster and a lot more than men do because we're trying to struggle and here's the house cleaning and, you know, we got so many balls in the air. Plus be a professional in your job and take that on and then come home and do everything else that has to happen on the back end. So I'm super lucky. I have an amazing supportive husband. You know, it's not this is your job, this is my job, and this is what we do. You know, we both take care of the household and we both do all these great things. And he supports me in all the craziness I do with whether it's changing jobs or, you know, you want to work at heights. What are you doing? I'm definitely afraid of heights, by the way. So
oh my God.
yeah, definitely. Like I wear a lot of black clothing so people can't see me sweat if I'm like on a job site, like, you know, 50, 100 feet in the air. But I think having that support group, whether it's a husband or a friend or a parent, somebody who's behind you to help support you, don't burn yourself out. We can't.
Yeah, absolutely.
We're no good to anybody at work or at home if we're burnt out.
Yeah.
And I read a lot. That's my other
passion.
Yeah, I read a lot.
What do you read? What kind of books do you like to read?
Psychological thrillers. So I jump between Hallmark movies. I love Hallmark movies. I'm a sucker for Hallmark.
Oh my God, you and my mother.
I'm a sucker from the time my trailer closes, like Canadian Thanksgiving weekend, like mid-October, until it opens like Mother's Day weekend. I'm like every Saturday, Sunday on the couch in the morning with my cup of tea or cup of coffee and watching Hallmark movies. And then I read psychological thrillers. So it's like, I know how to be super happy, but I also know how to hide bodies. So, you know, it's, I'm also a safety person, so I can make things look like accidents. But I think
all figured out.
right. I've got it all figured out. But for me, like I can get lost in a book. It's great. We go on vacations with a group of friends every year and everybody knows like Andrea's down on the beach for a few hours, reading her book. And then I'll eventually wander to the pool, hang out with everybody. And then I might take a break in the shade and read for another hour. So it's do what you want to do when you want to do it. Yeah. Right. You don't have to live on anybody else's time.
I love it. Well, this has been such a pleasure to get to know you and what you do. It is incredible. And I have learned so much. So thank you. And I'm just excited that this can get out and you can, you know, more people can just learn about what you do.
Absolutely. There's so many opportunities within the safety world, right? And And it's an important thing, because if you look at every job site, there's multiple safety people within the contractors and the trades world, and then on the manufacturing side. So it's neat. There's no monotony, just like construction. No 2 days are ever going to really be the same. So it gives me the opportunity to meet so many different people around the country, and I love it.
That's awesome. Well, thank you so much.
Thank you, Stefanie. I appreciate it.
All right. Have a great day.
Bye now.
Okay, bye.
Thanks for joining me today on the She Build Show. My name is Stefanie Olson. My hope is that this episode leaves you feeling empowered and ready to boldly take that step into building the life that you envision, 1 2x4 at a time. And if you can do me a quick favor, please leave me a 5-star review on iTunes. I get giddy over reading the reviews each week, and I will choose one special person to win some She Build swag. Make sure you add your name to the review, and I'll reach out if you're the winner. Thanks again for hanging out. Be sure to visit me at theshebuildshow.com, where you can ask me questions and share with me what you're building.